Emily Dickinson spent decades in her bedroom, a choice her neighbors interpreted as a sign of depression or aimless withdrawal. In reality, she was constructing an internal universe, producing nearly 1,800 poems that changed literature from within those four walls. For centuries, society viewed isolation as a path to enlightenment rather than a symptom of failure. Monks sought clarity in remote monasteries, and Isaac Newton developed the laws of motion while sequestered in his family's country manor. This deliberate retreat was seen as an admirable departure from the ordinary. Modern isolation has lost this sacred reputation. In Japan, over 1 million hikikomori live in single rooms for years, choosing to reject the outside world for survival. Globally, we see the rise of the NEET population, young adults not in education, employment, or training. This isn't a retreat for enlightenment. It is a response to a world that feels too loud and demanding. Bernardo Provenzano, a boss within the Sicilian mafia, managed a global empire for 13 years from a hidden farmhouse. He communicated only through handwritten notes and never showed his face to his associates. His story complicates the idea that staying indoors implies a lack of agency or influence. When the outside world feels hostile, isolation becomes a functional strategy for safety. Extreme withdrawal is often a deeply ingrained response to the pressures of a society that misinterprets the reasons people shut the door. Avoidance begins in the amygdala, the part of the brain that records emotional memories and signals danger. When a social interaction leads to a moment of shame or rejection, the amygdala archives that event as evidence of a threat. It begins to flag the outdoors as a site of potential harm. Choosing to stay home provides a wave of relief that acts as a reward. The brain dispenses dopamine, a reinforcement chemical, essentially encouraging you to repeat the avoidant behavior. Over time, the house transforms into a chamber where staying put is the only action that feels satisfying. As this loop cycles, the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for long-term benefits and delayed gratification, grows quiet. The brain stops arguing for the value of facing discomfort. The logic of the avoidance machine wins, making withdrawal the default way of life. A minor mistake can spiral into a chronic clinical issue. Avoiding one awkward class can lead to skipping a semester, which eventually leads to dropping out entirely. Researchers call this the anxiety avoidance cycle, where the act of avoiding a fear creates the very consequences a person originally dreaded. This process changes the nature of the home. It is no longer just a place to live. It is a psychological quarantine. Biology and memory work together to build a barrier that logic cannot easily breach. Public life requires a persona, a social mask described by Carl Jung as a tool to make an impression on others. Operating in the world means following a predetermined script of polite greetings and small talk, a performance that conceals an individual's true nature. For people with high self-awareness, the friction between their authentic self and social expectations is exhausting.
They calculate the energy cost of acting normal for even an hour. Eventually, the social battery operates on a different set of rules, and the cost of performance outweighs the benefit of connection. Before her fame, Stefani Germanotta was mocked by peers who created social media groups dedicated to her failure. She isolated herself to protect her musical ambitions and her sense of self. This withdrawal wasn't an escape from reality, but a way to preserve her created energy from those who mocked it. By staying home, these individuals prioritize their inner world over the demands of the crowd. They have decided that the social contract is too expensive for the individuality it requires them to surrender. In this context, isolation is a philosophical stance, a deliberate retreat from the inauthentic roles required by society. The desire to retreat is accelerated by the loss of the third space. These are the neutral, communal grounds between work and home where people historically gathered without the pressure of an agenda or a persona. European cities often maintain these spaces through walkable architecture and local cafes that have served generations. In the United States, walkable communities are often unaffordable, and urban design has become increasingly hostile to those who simply want to linger in public. Many remaining third spaces are underfunded or locked behind luxury paywalls.
Public libraries struggle for resources, while communal areas like lounges and pools are often restricted to expensive apartment complexes. Spontaneous public life has become a luxury. Digital infrastructure has filled this gap by removing the physical necessity of leaving the house. Remote work, delivery apps, and streaming services allow every pillar of public life to be accessed from a smartphone. The outside world has lost its reputation as a required destination. We have built a society that accommodates the retreat by making the outdoors expensive and uninviting, while making the indoors self-sufficient. We have engineered the perfect conditions for permanent withdrawal. Isolated individuals aren't necessarily choosing a fake reality over a real one. They are migrating to the only environment where they feel they can exist on their own terms. The screen is often the first and only path to a connection that feels genuine. Niche online communities function as social training grounds for those with paralyzing anxiety. These digital spaces offer a way to practice being a person without risk of embarrassment. They provide roles, voices, and stakes that genuinely matter. Extreme isolation is a logical response to the architecture of the modern world. Our brains are wired to reward avoidance, our social roles are exhausting to perform, and our physical cities offer fewer places to belong. If we want people to stop retreating, we cannot simply tell them to go out more. Society must build a shared physical reality that offers a higher sense of fulfillment than the safety of a closed door. We must create a world that is worth the psychological cost of stepping outside.